Hello, welcome to Gardener's World. Now, we haven't been here for a few weeks, and in that time the garden has changed a lot. We've also had filthy weather. It's rained and rained, it's been really cold, and that's been miserable for gardeners, but good for the garden. It's given it lots of water. The whole place has become extraordinarily vibrant and lush, and because it's been cold, some things have been held back and other things have lasted much longer. So, for example, the tulips and the alliums are both coming together. And we have a richness that I don't remember for quite a few years. Now, in tonight's programme, I shall be planting water lilies in the pond, and I'll also be putting in the ground those plants I bought at Morven. Carol visits an amazing fernery in Monmouthshire.
It's magical. It's fairyland, isn't it?
And Rachel's group of army gardeners get their inspiration from a trip to a commercial cutting garden.
It's just lovely to see how much you can achieve from just planting some seeds in the ground.
Now, you don't have to wear waders to wheel a wheelbarrow, but it does help when you're planting water lilies, as you will see. I've chosen 3 for the pond, and that's about as many as it will take. And the first is called Sunrise, and its proper name is Nymphaea odorata sulphurea grandiflora. And the odorata is a clue because it's got a good fragrance. And all 3 are yellow because that will match in with the yellow colours going on the bank. I've got a Nufa. Now, this is not so much a water lily as a pond lily. It's native. It's fairly robust, but will attract wildlife and easier to grow, very hardy. So if you're new to growing water lilies, this is a good one to get you going. And then finally, I've got Chromatella. Really good, bright yellow flowers. Now, I could just take these baskets that they're planted in and plonk them in the water, and they will grow. The problem is they'd quickly outgrow these and I'd have to lift them and repot them next year or the year after. So I'm going to repot them now before I put them in. You need a fairly large planting basket and just line the pot with hessian. Most aquatic plants need minimal nutrition, but water lilies do need a little bit more oomph. And in the past, it would be made up from loam and sand, but you can buy water lily or deep water compost, and that's what's in here. And they need to be anchored. So this, which is already only half full, quite heavy, will not float about or move in any way. Now, the next step is to plant this and then fill more soil around it. Now, I need to leave a little bit of room on the top because I want to cover that with grit. And the grit will hold the soil in place so it doesn't just mix with the water and float away. Now, what I will do is fold the hessian in, but not covering the plant, and then cover that with grit so it looks nice. Right, the next phase is to put it in the water. I want the lilies to flower in this area here. It's in full sunshine. Now, lilies must have sunshine to flower. Now, the idea is to get the balance between foliar cover and clear water right. Ideally, you want 1/3 of the water covered by foliage and 2/3 clear. If you have too much clear water, it heats up, the sunlight gets through and you get more algal bloom. If you have too little, you don't get enough light going through. So this is the perfect place to plant them, but it's a little deep. So I need to get something to prop them up on. Just before I get in, you'll see this will sit on that like that. So it should be steady enough and then raised up close enough to the surface so it can grow. Now, the reason that I need support is that water lilies grow on the bottom of ponds. Most of them need at least 2 to 3 foot of water between the bottom and the surface. But a young plant has to be gradually introduced to the water. It can cope with about 1.5 to 2 feet, and then it must be supported until the leaves grow up and there's a bit of slack, and then you can lower it down until it reaches the bottom. Right, all that just for one plant. But it probably won't flower this first year, but I can wait. Because when we get a really good spread of the yellow water lilies, different shades, that's fantastic. I mean, water lilies are one of the most spectacular of all plants. I once visited Givigny in August when they were looking really at their best, and you can see why people flock half the way around the world just to see them. Now, you don't need to have a big pond to grow water lilies. There are a huge amount to choose from, and some are tiny, little jewel-like flowers that grow perfectly happy in a container. But they need to be set against a great mass of greenery, and ponds and damp gardens really are based around lush green growth. And I suppose ferns epitomise that as much as anything else. We've got the shuttlecock fern growing all around the edge of the pond here. But there are many, many more to choose from. And Carol has been to visit a fernery in South Wales, which has been brilliantly restored.
Ferns are amongst the most ancient plants on the planet. They've been knocking around for almost 400 million years. And they're still going strong. They evolved long before flowering plants, and they have an entirely different method of reproduction. They don't set any seeds. Instead of that, on the back of their fronds, they produce multiple spores, very, very fine spores, which are carried in the breeze hither and thither. Despite the fact that some are evergreen and some herbaceous, they all share one common feature, and that is, each year on this marvellous cycle, they renew themselves by producing these brand new crosiers. First of all, they're tightly furled, almost like fists, and then gradually they lengthen and extend until they become completely new fronds. You might say that they're all green, but those greens are so subtle and so various, and the forms of the fronds are so diverse. You really don't need anything else. You could make a garden out of ferns. And over 100 years ago, that's just what people did, in a big way. Fern fever had gripped the country, and elaborate glass ferneries were built at grand Victorian residences. The one at Dewstow House in Monmouthshire fell into disrepair after the Second World War and was buried under rubble for nearly 60 years, before its current owners decided to excavate and restore this lost fern wonderland. Keeping a watchful eye on this treasure trove is head gardener Peter Lane. It's magical. It's fairyland, isn't it?
Beautiful, isn't it?
It really is. And it is a grotto, isn't it? You just feel as though you're in this secret place and you've just discovered it.
Basically, we knew that there was something here.
Yeah.
So we started digging, found a pond, found a path,
Yeah.
kept going. And one of the grottos was this, the Tufa Grotto.
So is this what it would have looked like originally?
Well, up to the roof level you see now, it is original, but with a few modifications to allow for new planting.
But it wouldn't have had a corrugated iron roof, would it?
No, there certainly wasn't. There were beams covering this grotto with stalactites, all man-made, and a rather grand Victorian domed glass roof over the top. It must have been really, really impressive in its day.
The vast labyrinth of underground grottos here at Dewstow were started in 1895 and took over 15 years to carve out, creating the perfect environment for moisture-loving ferns. There are some ferns that are unforgettable, that stay with you. Ethereum nipponicum pictum has an almost haunting presence. Pictum means painted, and this is the Japanese painted fern. And just one plant of this makes a complete cameo all on its own. It's a beautiful fern. These damp caverns perfectly recreate the moist woodland that ferns like this woodwardia thrive in. And Peter has his own tried and tested method of propagating it.
You can see the bulbil forming at the bottom there, and you can cut that off.
What, just sever it across the stem?
Yeah, sever it and then pot it up, and you would be okay, I would have thought, but this is my favourite way of doing it.
And very complex equipment. Plastic bag with a load of compost in
Yes,
it.
and the piece of string.
Oh, don't forget the piece of string.
Don't forget the string. Most important.
Shove it in there then. And you just want it to be in contact with that compost,
That's it, yeah.
Will you do the string bit?
There we go.
Were you ever a Boy Scout?
Oh, I only know one knot. It was my granny's.
So how long will you leave that in there?
I'll leave that in there for a minimum of 6 weeks. Hopefully you'll see one of the fronds, the new fronds, start to unfurl, and you'll know then that it's ready to cut off and pot up for next year.
OK. I suppose it's easy to assume that, you know, all ferns are pretty similar. But when you start looking at them, you realise just how vastly diverse they are. And very often you think of ferns as being these great, big, bold plants with large fronds, much divided. But in contrast, some of them can be delicate and feminine. Look at the filigree of this beautiful little maidenhair fern. I think the point is that you don't need a grotto. You can grow ferns just about anywhere because they're so accommodating. Even that grotty corner between the dustbin and the garage is a perfect place to decorate with ferns. And what wonderful ornamental plants they are.
There is a kind of Gothic relish that you get from ferns, and especially in a fernery. But you don't need to have a wonderful Victorian fernery to get the essence of them. And I bought some ferns at Malvern. I was looking specifically for those that would flourish in dry shade. And I've got two different types of dry shade here in the garden. And the first is woodland. Now this is the copse, and it's very dry because the roots of the hedges and the trees sucking up all the moisture. So I've got a couple I want to plant. The first is the soft shield fern, and that's Polystichum setiferum. Very adaptable, likes good drainage, but makes a handsome plant with wonderful croziers, which will grow about 2 or 3 foot tall. And the second is Dryopteris cristata the king, and it does make a really majestic plant. They look fairly similar at this stage, but as they grow, they develop distinct characteristics. Right, those don't look like much now, but they will establish and grow fairly quickly. And of course they'll spread, which is fantastic. But the remainder of these are for a completely different spot. Now this is the dry garden, and it really is dry too. There's hardly any soil in here at all. It couldn't be more different from the copse. And yet pretty much the same ferns will cope with this. You can see I've already got some ferns in here. Up here on the wall is a hartstongue fern, which has sown itself perfectly happy right in the wall, not a hint of soil whatsoever. And although I'm catching the sun now, believe you me, this is only in late afternoon. Until about mid-afternoon, there's no sun here at all, and none in the winter. And a Dryopteris cristata, which actually does really well on that spot. So ferns are happy, but the soil is practically non-existent. Now I've got another two types to add, if I can find space. The first is a polypodium, which is a native. And this is one of those ferns, like the hart's tongue, that will pop up all over the place, in walls, on top of walls, in cracks in paving. And that's a good sign that it's adaptable and will grow in this very, very poor soil. Right, that goes in there. This is a hart's tongue and a splenum marginatum. And you can see it's got these wavy edges to the fronds. That, by the way, is a little bit of wind and sun damage. It really doesn't like being too exposed. It likes to be protected, sheltered from wind, and quite happy in pretty much full shade. So if I take that out, I think I can force it into the base of the wall. Now, there are not many plants that you could do that to, but I think that will survive, and we hope even thrive. Now these ferns are drought tolerant, which doesn't mean to say that they don't need any water at all. Obviously, rain will do most of the work for you, but they should be watered in after planting, and then if there's no water at all, given a really good soak once a month for the rest of this year.
However, most of the soil at Longmeadow is fabulously rich and fertile, and everything tends to grow with exceptional vigour. And this is especially true in the ornamental vegetable garden. And this year I'm doing an experiment in here with sweet peas, which are one of my favourite summer annuals.
Which I set up at the beginning of the year to see if there's any real difference between autumn-sown sweet peas sown in the new year, and those sown direct by seed. So I've got 3 wigwams, or there will be when I put this one in, of identical sweet peas, which we'll plant today at the same time in the same soil, and then we can see which do better. And by doing better, I mean which lasts longer with the most flowers. That's the real key thing. It doesn't matter how tall they grow, it's just flowers we want, and as much of them for as long as possible. Now I'm putting plenty of compost in because sweet peas really respond well to feed and, above all, moisture. And this will hold the water and give them lots of grub. So that's a good source of nourishment underground. Pull the soil back over. Now, just to remind you, these were sown last October. Monty Don sweet pea. These, exactly the same seeds, planted on the 30th of March. And there's a packet of seed. Now, if you sow sweet peas this weekend, they will grow and flower in summer, and also give a really good display right on into September and even October if it's a cool summer. And if sweet peas aren't your thing, or you've already done them, here are some other things that you can be doing this weekend. In spring, it's easiest to raise salad plants in plugs and then put them out into the ground. However, at this time of year, they can be sown direct, and as you plant one lot or harvest them, sow another batch, and that way you keep a succession of plants, providing you with a delicious salad right through the summer. As the weather warms up, all plants in containers will start to grow vigorously, and this is where a little bit of extra feed will make a real difference. Don't feed them too much and avoid all nitrogenous feeds, which will just create leafy growth and put extra strain on the roots. Liquid seaweed, either applied as a foliar spray or a drench from a watering can, is ideal, and that will boost the roots and provide long-lasting nourishment.
Although in most parts of the country the risk of frost is over, it's still a good idea to earth up potatoes. And this will not only protect them from frost, but also make sure the emerging tubers have a layer of soil to keep the light off them.
Now, just as they're looking at their best in the garden, it's time to be thinking about next year's wallflowers if I'm going to grow them from seed. And it is worth planning ahead because they're biennials, so that you sow them now and then they do their growing until autumn, then they hold a bit, but they've got good roots and a good system ready to burst into flower next spring. And the great advantage of growing anything from seed is volume. You just get so much more for your money. And you can fill a whole garden from seed for a fraction of the cost of just buying, I don't know, a dozen plants. And Rachel has been gearing a group of army families into making a garden from seed this year. They're based at Didcot. This week they've gone down the road to visit a local cut flower grower to get some inspiration.
The 11 EOD Regiment, the Army's Bomb Disposal Squad, have embarked on a new mission. Over the past few weeks at their base at Didcot in Oxfordshire, the whole community on camp has pulled together to create a garden. They built raised beds.
We're going to do little steps. You go all the way around, don't forget the corners.
And I gave them a helping hand to start sowing seeds. They've had their ups. That's amazing after 5 days. And their downs. And for the last 5 weeks, they've been entirely on their own.
Okay, so this is how far we've got. As you can see, we've got some lovely plants growing.
We were a bit worried about the younger sweet peas that we've got here, but they seem to be holding on at the moment.
Well, we've got boards just outlining a few little things that we've got going on. So we've got the garden plan here, and then we've got a rota here for everyone to come up and help out watering.
We've got these out of the greenhouse to harden up. A lot of them have taken really well. However, we've had a few that haven't done so well, and some that have actually just not done well at all.
We were a bit concerned whether these were weeds or not. Rachel showed us how to plant them. You can now tell the difference between the weeds and what is growing.
Came up to water and there were just these lovely lines where we'd obviously, we put all our seeds and it was working. Something that sort of 2 months ago we wouldn't have a clue how to do. So we're picking up lots of new techniques.
Rusky has been using his carpentry skills, creating bird boxes and an impressive entrance for the garden.
I was told we'd got some spare timber, so I thought it'd just set the entrance off a little bit.
As they grow ever more confident with the garden, I decided to send them something new to plant, dahlias.
They're very ugly, and I just can't imagine that they turn out into actual beautiful pink flowers. Yeah, they don't look too good now, but I'm sure they'll look lovely once they're done.
Our novice gardeners have been working really hard, so as a treat, I organised for them to visit cut flower grower Rachel Siegfried to give them a taste of what's to come.
Oh, there's a lot of you. And a little one. Yes. So we have a rather large polytunnel, which does give us a little bit of a head start. These lovely flowers are called ranunculus. It's just a little bulb. It goes in about October time, and you can literally pick about 10 stems per bulb. With the anemones, you'd be planting those about September, October time. Good to grow outside, just need that little bit of extra protection with some mulch. Once your annuals are growing up a little bit, I know they're a bit small at the moment, but as soon as we get some sunshine, they're really going to get away very rapidly. You want to think about staking those so that you get nice, long, straight stems. Can you see this netting? It's called P and B netting, and you can get it from the garden centre. It's stretched nice and taut, so that it forms a very good, strong support for the cornflowers. These are all cornflowers to grow through, and it sort of creates this hedge.
After a demonstration on the art of hoeing, our gardeners were keen to know the best way to look after all those sweet peas they've sown.
Sweet peas are all about the picking. Once they start to flower, you've got to keep up with the picking. Otherwise, they will go over, they'll go to seed, and the crop will finish early for you. So even if you don't want them, you still have to pick them. It is just literally right down to the base of the plant and straight into the water. Get rid of some of these tendrils because they do tend to get wrapped around flower stems and kink stems, and they take energy away from your flowers as well.
The first thing that hit me is, wow, I want to get back in that garden, as do the other girls. I want to get my fingers dirty.
It's just lovely to see how much you can achieve from just planting some seeds in the ground.
It's just so inspiring. It'd be good to show that it all comes together, the whole team comes together, and that we can achieve something really positive.
That's one seed tray sown. When you're sowing any seed, you want to think through the process. So how's the seed going to end up? Because most seed, if it's small, is best started off in a tray and then pricked out. But you've got to think where you're going to prick them out to and how you're going to do it. If they're larger seed, it's sometimes easier to sow into a plug, so they don't need any pricking out at all. But these are small seed to handle, and also the whole process is quite long. So might as well start in a seed tray, which is a lot easier initially. This is primrose bedder, but the same would apply for foxgloves, forget-me-nots, any of those spring biennials, which just make the garden sing at this time of year. Now seed like that, and sprinkle them fairly thinly. That's enough. Now, I'll just cover that with a sieved layer of compost, very light. Now just pop these in a tray of water to soak up moisture. And then they don't have to go in a greenhouse, just somewhere protected. Cold frame is ideal, but just in a protected place outside, and they will germinate and be ready for pricking out in about 4 or 5 weeks' time. That's it for this week. Bye-bye.